give up on it. Bring it on, bring it on. Are you ready? Ready? No matter how you try, don't you ever fall. Keep your head up high and standing tall. Bring it on, bring it on. Are you ready? Ready? No matter how you try, don't you ever fall. Keep your head up high and standing tall.
Thank you. Let me just remind you, parenting is a lifestyle. Yes. In case you don't know, you think it's a responsibility. Yes, it is, but it's a lifestyle. So let us establish that, and many people may not even be aware of that particular fact. Now, as a parent, someone who is parenting, someone who is occupying a parenting role, you play an essential role in your child's life, in their successes, in their failures, in their vulnerabilities, in their opportunities, whatever. You are the single most important influence in that child's life. So it's something that I just learned yesterday in discussing, the topic at hand, that intentional parenting is an approach where you strategize to build a healthy parent-child relationship. So that's the kernel of our conversation this morning. We have Blessing Oladimeji, who is a parenting associate with us this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, sir.
Okay, I've given just a line to introduce intentional parenting. Please give us the expanded version. What is that?
Okay, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
So I would say intentional parenting is likened to what a farmer does.
Oh.
So, a farmer has seeds and they want to plant it. So they have to be intentional in knowing the kind of soil they'll plant, the time they'll plant. So that's what a farmer does, is what a parent does. Children are like seeds in the hands of parents. And we have different children, the same way we have different seeds. So there's a bean plant, there's the orange seed. They're not the same.
Even the beans, there are different kinds of beans.
There are different kinds of beans. So the situation surrounding all of them are very different. So intentional parenting is what a farmer does and says, okay, I have this seed. Where do I plant it? How do I do it? How do I nourish it? How do I nurture it? So that's what a parent is also doing with their children. Intentionally knowing how to have an end in mind. Because a farmer that keeps going every time is planting because he's going to harvest. So he has a certain period, so he needs to put in everything, all the qualities to make that happen at the end of the day.
I am glad you are using the analogy or metaphor of a farmer. The farmer puts in all that it can put.
Yes.
So the farmer has variables it can control.
Yes.
But then there are also variables the farmer cannot control, e.g. weather.
Very well.
Climate change.
Very well.
In the case of a parent farmer, economic conditions, fuel price increase,
seriously,
etc.
honestly,
they cannot control. So find a way to factor all of that in first as to how the parent gets that done. How the parent is able to manage that intentional parenting in the space of those uncontrollable, or rather, the variables he or she cannot control.
Yes, so right now in our economy, our economic reality right now is the major thing we're talking about is the removal of the fuel subsidy.
For now.
For now. And as at May 29, we're still buying fuel at 168 naira. Right now, this week, I think it became 570. Thereabouts. So this is something that was May, and we're just in July. So this is something that we're not able to control. So I would say parenting.
And we didn't even factor in at the beginning of the year.
We didn't even know what was coming. We didn't know what was coming at all. So these are things we call disruption, transition. So right now, parents are going through a transition. Or let me say, everybody in Nigeria, we're going through a transition. And transitions will keep happening. We can't avoid transitions. It's to continue to happen in different forms of life. And communication with children in this situation is this. Because transitions will continue to happen, it's good we communicate it to our children. When they go to a new school, a transition has occurred. When they have a new teacher, a teacher just leaves. A transition has occurred. So they have to adjust and adapt to that situation. So it's the communication that you have with your child that will help you to guide them through and let them know that in life there are some circumstances that they cannot control, such as the ones we have found ourselves in right now. Sometimes parents are they want to go for a PTA meeting or they want to go for a child's event. And the child is looking out that my dad is coming, my mom is coming. But traffic just happened. And the parents sincerely was on their way to that school, but they were not able to make it down because something beyond their control happens. So that's why I always believe in having conversations with children so that you let them know that sometimes things don't work out as you plan. And sometimes things work out as you plan. But the best thing is keep planning.
Okay. Still talking about that communication. I'm going to come to the point of the farmer. We've looked at the farmer from the perspective of the seed.
Yes.
We're still going to talk about the farmer himself or herself. Who is doing the planning? What the frame of mind, the circumstances of experience, of existence, and all those things. But in terms of the communication, there are different ways we talk to different classes of children. Yes. You don't talk to a toddler the way you talk to a teenager, for instance, and adolescents and all those things. Now, when you talk about intentional parenting, let's talk about how, first of all, maybe we should actually talk about that farmer first. You didn't just say parents, you said intentional parents.
Yes.
So, why intentional parents? Are there parents that are not intentional? Or they became parents accidentally?
Definitely. So we have...
even though they are married?
They might not even be married. We have single parents.
Yes, I know. But so is it possible to have intentional parents that are married?
Yes,
or unintentional parents that are married?
So the truth is, most of us, when we grew up, the kind of, I grew up in the early 80s. So when we grew up, all we saw around was when you finish an higher institution, you go for NYSC, then you get a job. Then after a job, they start asking you, when are you getting married? Now, when you get married, the next question is, when are you having children?
Yes. Isn't that... What's wrong with that? Isn't that to be expected?
So, yes. So some parents are not... Intentional parenting is being aware, being conscious of the aim of what you are doing, being conscious that there's an end in mind. It's, I call it a proactive approach to raising wholesome children. It's a proactive approach because you have to look ahead. Remember, the child that is coming, you have never met that child before. Any baby that comes, you're meeting the baby for the first time. The baby doesn't know that you're both meeting each other for the first time. So you have to try to understand, know this child. Who is this child? The fact that you want to know who your child is work on its own. Because children are also different. So when you have child A is different from child B. I have 3 princes, I have boys, and the 3 of them are as different as morning, afternoon, and night. They are not the same. So because they are not the same, I cannot treat them the same way. The way you talk to them differs. Like you just talked about the ages now that we have. You cannot talk to a child of 17 years the same way you spoke to that same child when the child was 5. You have to upgrade on the communication that you have with such child.
Okay. When you were growing up in the 80s, as you said, I'm going to stoke a fire now. Once mommy or daddy says, this is what we are doing, what do you say?
We take it.
Good.
Yes.
You tell any of your princes today, go there. What's the next thing you hear?
Why?
Why?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes, because times have changed.
What changed it? Is it not the same wristwatch you are
It's the same wristwatch we are using. But I was telling my princes that when I was in the university, 300 level was the first time I had a phone. But they came into the world and met a phone. They met a laptop. They met color television.
You also had a tablet.
I didn't have a tablet
You had
at that time.
slates. You had slates with stylus, white stylus.
Yes, so there's so much modernization. Our children are more exposed. There's globalization. They've been able to see what is going on outside their own, from their rooms. I tell people, when people say, oh, my child does not know things, I tell most parents that the fact that your child is watching the television, the child can listen to news, the child has a tablet, the child has a phone, the child has gone around the world.
So those are some of the variables that the parents may not be able to control, but they might be able to guide.
Guide.
Now, let's stick with the parent for a little bit longer. The parent grew up traumatized in a way because you just did what you were told.
Yes.
They ask you, mommy, why?
Why? Yes.
I'm sure someone watching right now is okay. Remembering, you tell that, daddy says, go and sit down there. He says, daddy, why?
Yes. I remember something happened some years ago when one of my princes, he was very close to was in the living room. My husband was close to the kitchen. And my husband wanted to drink water and called him. I think my son was about 4 years then, and my husband called him to drink, please get me some water. You know what he said? He said, Dad, you're closer to the kitchen than I am. So logically, that makes sense, right? Logically, that makes sense.
I can imagine your husband saying to that boy, she has said this to my dad.
You know what will happen. But now, what intentional parenting now means in this situation that I just gave an example, what my son did. Intentional parenting says he's right. Logically, he's right. He needs guardians. You need to guide him. So my husband said, okay, yes, you're correct. You know, you're right. I'm very close to the kitchen where there's water, but I want to drink the water from you. And you're on the training ground, so we're still training you. I can pick the water, but I'm training you to run errands. I said, okay, Dad, you would have said that. And he went. So intentional parenting says you reason with your children. Oh my goodness, you're laughing.
Oh, Jesus.
But seriously, that's the truth.
Okay,
They're born at a different
you see,
time.
why that might be a little difficult for some parents, and I'm saying this advisedly, because there are, you're pretty more aware of these things than I am. Teenagers, adolescents who are not happy with their parents,
Yes.
who feel that mommy doesn't understand me, daddy doesn't understand me.
Very well.
And the parents are like, what are you talking about?
What should I understand?
What exactly, so there is that divergence. And we just spoke about, the upbringing of the parents and then the children that they are themselves bringing up now being completely different. And some of them had said to themselves, some parents have sworn, the way I will raise my child, So these things are our realities. The parent himself or herself is in transition.
Yes.
So how do we manage those transitions in a way that at the end of the day, all the factors collide, they agree.
Yeah.
They have a consensus, they have a convergence. The parents and the children can agree. Right now, that is not the case. So how do we help? Because we can't give the initiative to the children, no matter how mature, intelligent, whatever they are.
Yes.
It's the responsibility of the parents.
Yes.
Unprepared, unintentional as they may be, how do we get to that point of convergence?
Okay, so I will describe it using 4 C's. So the first one, and I'm also a parent, so I'm in this same situation that we're in. I'm in transition. I'm asking questions that can't be answered. When you think you're settling down into something, another thing is showing up, and you're like, what's going on? So we're all, or most of us are in the same situation. The first thing I would say is conversations. Have age-appropriate conversations with your children. It has to be age-appropriate. So that's why you will tell a toddler in a way that the toddler will understand. It's different from the way you tell a teenager. So the first thing is to have conversations with our children. Let them know what is going on right now. Explain it in their age-appropriate understanding. And let a child know. I called my princess and I told them, I said, do you know before we're buying fuel at 168? Now, you guys know the maths. Do the maths. It's 570, subtract it from this. And they're like, wow, Mom, wow. I say, yes, so that is what is going on. Now, that's their own age.
How does that affect their
So they have to know that they have to start managing things. It can't be like before anymore, whereby they take, okay, for example, you buy milk, you buy a refill, you buy a tin of milk, then all of a sudden you switch to sachet.
So you have that conversation.
Yeah, you have that conversation.
You see the way I'm looking at you?
It works.
You have that conversation.
It works fine. My children understand it because we have that conversation. And they say, Mom, we want to keep dishing with the spoon and taking so much milk. And we say, no, we have to have sachet. So this is your sachet. Maybe it's 16 grams. You manage what you have. So it's conversation. So they say, okay, they understand. See, children understand. We just think our children do not understand. When we explain things to them, they get it. They understand it. There's a way you have a conversation with your teenager. You can go to their room. You can just... So the first thing, you step down to their level. You step down to a child's level, and that's why I said age appropriate. You go to a teenager's place. The first time you get to their room, the first thing you are saying is not you're not criticizing the child and saying what is wrong about them. Why is the plate in your room? Why is this all around here? Because at that point, the teenager feels, what is this? Why are you here? You want to start judging me. So you put off criticism and you just chat with your teenager and say, do you know what's going on? Do you even follow the news? Do you know what's going on?
So conversations number one.
Conversations number one. Number two, with our present economic reality right now, parents have to choose self-care. We have to choose self-care. We have to be aware and conscious that our children do not understand. For someone that have very little children, they don't know. They don't know what's happening. They don't know the differences. We have already set an expectation for children, especially most middle-class families. A new session is coming. You change all their bags. You change their shoes. You change their uniforms. But this time around, you have to look, does it really need a change? If it doesn't need a change, what do? Then we're not going to change it. So parents have to say, number one, it's not my child's fault that we're in this situation. And it's not my fault. So I have to choose happiness. It's a choice. You have to choose joy.
So the parent has to care for herself or himself.
You have to care for yourself.
And
you
not
have to be in that place.
Under pressure. Because even parents have peer pressure.
Yes, parents do. We all do.
Self-inflicted.
Yes, sir, we put on ourselves. Seriously, so we have to choose to be in a state of joy and peace because it's not our fault. Okay. It's not our children's fault. Okay. And another thing we have to do is we have to be creative. That's another C. We have to be creative at this period. We have to be creative such that children might want to travel, and all that, but maybe we can't travel right now. You want to go on vacation, but the flight ticket is so expensive.
No, just give them VR machines.
So what do? You
virtual reality. Travel in your...
Yes. So you make them aspirational. You can tell them, I told my princess to get like a vision board through slides on PowerPoint, that anything they want. So they were picking big mansions, lovely cars and all that. So it's just a creativity and tell them anything can happen. You can have it, but help them travel through their imagination. If they can't travel physically, at least they can travel with their imagination. It's free to travel with your imagination. And you also have to choose, this period is a time for communal living. As much as possible, you want to, instead of, we have summer camps and all going on right now, and some people might feel they don't have enough money. So how about parents coming together and saying, oh, I know how to teach this thing. Can I teach your children this thing? What's your area of strength? Can you also teach the children this? So it has to be a lot of communal living. And for those that want to go for even summer school, how about pooling resources together? You drop the children in the morning, I pick them in the afternoon. So we really have to come together.
So in this time, we just spoke about peer pressure among parents.
they put
and you're not saying those same peer pressured parents should sit together and have, anyway, that's another conversation for them to go and think about. But you know, so now the parents, how do we help parents insulate themselves from the pressures of their work and the community or the environment or the economy so that they do not put it on the children, so that they don't get cranky, you know, and take it out on the kids. You spend X number of hours on the road. Now that may begin to come down because of the fuel, this thing. They can pull together when they want to go to the office and come back. So how do we do that? And because the boss at the office is almost, if not equally cranky.
Yes.
You know, so how do we ensure that there is no blowback of those crankiness on the children, whatever the age they are in?
So that's a lot of work and consciousness. Parents have to be more deliberate in that situation. The first thing is it has to be deliberate, such that when you're going home, you're already telling yourself, I am going back home, my children are at home. So like you have to put yourself in a state of calm. I'm going back home, my children are home, today has been tough, and it's still conversation, talking to parents, talking to the children about it. When you get home, you let the children know that, oh, okay, I'm back, how was your day? You want to tell them my day was fine or my day was rough and all that.
Okay, let me make this worse. So one, you are telling yourself behind the wheel or something, I'm going home, my children, and then someone shunts in front of you or some other mad driver, you know, does something to you, the commercial drivers, the bike drivers, all of them, literally working against your self-talk.
Everything you're planning.
That's one. You get home, you're still struggling with, okay, I'm going home, and then you get home. All the things you told the kids to do, especially at this time that they're at home,
holidays,
they have left undone. And they're teenagers. So is it still possible for the mommy and daddy to come home calm, cool, calm and collected?
It's possible.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's possible.
Okay.
So when it comes, now this is holiday period, for example, and children are around, they're at home, the children and the teenagers now. One mistake parents make is that we force our children to do things. Like I told you the other time, that even little children can understand. So one thing we do is allow children choose when they want to do certain things, especially the teenagers. Ask them, like you put them through it, that, okay, this is what I want you to do. What time do you want to do it? So it has to come from them. This is a way, it's just being intentional, like I said. It's just a deliberate action. You tell them to choose, okay, what time do you want to do these things? Most of the time, when children pioneer things, when they choose things and they champion things, it helps them do it. It helps them to do it. So you let them know, when do you want to do it? For example, what I did with my princess, the first week was play, 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 play. We just finished the exams, so can we just play? We play, 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 right? And from the second week, if you don't have your bath before, after, if you don't have your bath after 11 a.m., you're not eating, you've lost breakfast. So I'm not telling you, go and have your bath. We're not having that conversation. I'm not forcing you. But you just know that once it's 11 a.m. and you have not had a bath, you've lost breakfast. So there are certain things that parents do that you help your children to comply. So that child already knows that, okay, if I don't do this thing, I don't get this thing. And the same with teenagers. Just ask them. I'm telling you that if we can ask teenagers, what do you want? And what should be the consequence if you don't do it? They choose it themselves. It works.
So it is the mommy and daddy that have left home at 6 a.m.
It works.
that will now be monitoring 11 a.m. I don't know. Anyway, I get the point you're making, and I'm pretty sure everyone else has got it. You know, so, well, we're rounding off in about 5 minutes on this conversation now. For the parents, for the children, do you think we sometimes expect too much from them?
Very well. Of course we do. We expect a lot from our children. Remembering how we were raised, a lot was expected from us. So it's a cycle that being intentional can actually break. Like, because we were raised in that form, it's something that it's already in us. But when we talk about being intentional, and I'm really talking about intentionalism, because that makes you pause. It makes you conscious. It makes you aware. It makes you deliberate and say, okay, how did I get here? Then remembering that we were children before. Most of us parents have forgotten that we used to be children. So how did we feel at those times, those years? So if we get into that state, how did I feel then? It helps us to relate better with our children. It's remembering, but most parents have forgotten how to play, how to laugh, how to color.
In this economy.
We can't do it. Guess what? It's even going to calm us down. When last did you paint a picture, sir? So draw a circle with different colors. You paint this side. Just go and try it. You will be calm.
So you have heard, whether you are 50 years old or 55 years old, get coloring paper and pen. Interestingly, it's even easier now because it's something people can do on their tabs and all those things.
Play with your children.
So essentially you're saying parents themselves, and I like the second C, care. Parents themselves need to relax. They need to care for themselves before they can give the care.
Yes.
The pressures are there,
Yes.
Job deliverables are there, deadlines are there. How do they calm down to be intentional parents? For those who don't know how to be intentional parents, what would be your recommendation of their first steps?
First step is to know who you are. To remember, we need to look at ourselves and say, how did I get here? Everything that has formed who I am right now, because most things that have formed who we all are right now, sir, it's as a result of our significant emotional experiences, our upbringing, our background, and our environment. This has formed who we are. So once you see that I was born at a different time, we didn't have this. My children are born at a different time. They have this. So we need to get into a state of consciousness. So the first thing is, I can't relate to my children the same way my parents related with me, because the circumstances have changed.
Okay.
Everything is now different. So that's the first stage, to be intentional. Get to a state of looking at yourself, asking yourself questions. How did I get here? Who was I as a child? Who was I at age 5? Who we are at age 5 most of the time tells us who we really are, because life has happened. So a lot of us have changed into someone else because of lives, I suppose.
You even assume that some people remember where they were at age 5. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. This one has been quite enlightening, and I'm hoping that everyone else who's listened will get there, because maybe another day we'll talk about emotional intelligence, because parents themselves need to get to that space of that emotional intelligence, because if you are emotionally intelligent, it's easier to balance your conversation with the other fellow, irrespective of who this other fellow is. Thank you so much for being a part of this program this morning. Blessing Oladimeji is a parenting associate and is a partner in Parental. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So, we're back right after now to take on another issue. We call it the home stretch. And guess with who? After this break, we'll be right back.